Imagine this. You're sitting alone, scrolling, restless. Nothing looks different in your life. Same bills, same routines, same waiting. But under the surface, something feels charged, like the air before a storm. You can't explain it, yet you sense it. You're right on the edge of something big, even if logic keeps saying nothing's happening. That tension, that pull between what you see and what you feel, isn't random. It's the signal that your field is already rearranging. Because before every quantum leap, the outside looks stubborn, stuck, almost mocking you. And yet inside there's a subtle shift. Your identity, your emotions, your way of noticing reality, it starts to crack open. And those tiny inner shifts, they're the real evidence that you're closer than you imagine. See, we've been taught to measure progress by what shows up physically. The text that arrives, the number in the account, the door that opens. But in quantum mechanics, there's a rule. The observer changes the experiment. Reality bends not after something proves itself, but the moment your perception changes. That's why the signs of a leap don't always look like fireworks. They look like micro-adjustments in how you hold yourself, how you respond, how you tune into the mirror of life. And that's what I want to show you. Because maybe right now you're doubting yourself, convinced you're failing, because nothing visible has shifted. But those doubts themselves are part of the signal. They mean you're stretching beyond your old timeline. They mean your nervous system is recalibrating to a new frequency. They mean you are, in real time, brushing against the edge of coherence, where what you've been rehearsing inside finally syncs with the outer stage. Over the next few minutes, I'll walk you through the hidden markers of a quantum leap, the kind you can recognize today, even while your 3D world looks flat. You'll see how to trust the tremors beneath the surface. You'll understand why discomfort is often the proof you're aligned. And most importantly, you'll stop thinking you're behind and start realizing you're right at the threshold, because the leap never announces itself with a neat bow. It whispers. It rearranges you in secret. And by the time the evidence lands in your hands, the real change has already happened inside. Think of reality like a mirror. Not a mirror on the wall, but one that reflects back not your face, but your state of being. When you stand in front of a mirror with a frown, you don't wait for the reflection to smile before you do. You smile first, and the mirror follows instantly. Reality works the same way, only slower, stretched in time so it feels like lag. Here's the mechanism that trips most people up. We look at the mirror of life, we don't like what we see, and we keep reacting to that old reflection. Bills on the counter, silence after a message, the same job title on our email signature. We take it as evidence that nothing is changing. But in quantum terms, the observer effect is always running. Your state of attention, your embodied frequency, your micro-emotions, they're what collapse one version of the mirror over another. The reflection doesn't move until you shift first. And here's the subtlety. It's not just thoughts. Thinking I'm abundant while your stomach clenches in fear doesn't shift the mirror, because the reflection follows coherence. The body has to match the story. The nervous system has to feel safe enough to hold the new signal. That's why affirmation alone feels hollow. It's like smiling with your mouth while your eyes stay tense. The mirror catches the truth. This is why embodiment matters more than chasing positive thoughts. You're not just projecting ideas into the field, you're tuning your entire system like a radio. If you're broadcasting static, the signal comes back scrambled. If you're settled, grounded, coherent, the mirror stabilizes and the reflection begins to catch up. So those strange inner signs, the restlessness, the emotional waves, even the temptation to fall back into old reactions, are actually your system attempting to retune. Your subconscious is adjusting its grip. Your body is deciding whether it's safe to hold the frequency you've been reaching for. The leap is already running backstage. Most people miss this because they expect the first proof to be external. But imagine expecting a mirror to smile first, then promising you'll smile back. You'd wait forever. The moment you understand that the signal originates in you, the whole game changes. Suddenly, you stop needing reality to prove itself first. You become the proof. Now here's where it gets wild. If reality is your mirror, what about all those times you've been told to fake it till you make it? Does pretending actually move the reflection? Or is there a hidden distinction between performance and embodiment that changes everything? And that is where the first myth shows up. The most common advice you've probably heard is, fake it till you make it. Sounds catchy, right? Smile through the fear. Act confident until you are. Post like you're already successful, and the world will treat you that way. But here's the snag. Faking doesn't change the mirror. It only highlights the gap between what you're acting out and what you're actually embodying. Think about it. If you stand in front of a mirror and put on a mask, the reflection doesn't transform your face underneath. The reflection simply copies the mask. Deep down, you know you're pretending, and that signal leaks through. Your body knows. Your nervous system knows. The mirror knows, which is why so often faking it feels exhausting. You're performing for the world while secretly reinforcing the belief that you're not there yet. Now, contrast that with embodiment. Embodiment is not performance, it's resonance. It's when you allow your nervous system to experience the state you're aiming for, even in microbursts. Instead of acting confident on the outside, you rehearse what it feels like to breathe as someone confident. Instead of pretending to be abundant, you practice holding your body like someone who trusts their needs will be met. One is surface-level role play. The other is a frequency shift that the mirror can't ignore. Let me paint this through something simple. Imagine you've just sent a message you cared about, maybe a confession, maybe a job proposal, maybe a creative idea, and then silence. Minutes turn into hours. You keep checking, scrolling back, rereading what you sent. Your chest tightens. That old fear creeps in. Did I mess it up? Did they reject me? If you try to fake it here, you might force yourself to say, I don't care. I'm totally confident. I know my worth. But inside, your stomach is flipping. The mirror catches that tension. The energy you broadcast is neediness in disguise. But embodiment plays differently. Instead of faking, you pause. You notice the contraction in your chest. You put a hand there. You let your breath deepen. And then you gently rehearse the feeling of someone who already knows they are enough, regardless of the reply. You anchor into that state, not pretending the message doesn't matter, but embodying the truth that your worth isn't hanging on their answer. Suddenly, the silence doesn't drain you. It becomes proof you've shifted the mirror. This is the core myth bust. Pretending doesn't bend reality, because pretending is rooted in lack. Embodiment bends reality because it changes your actual frequency. The mirror has no choice but to catch up, and if that's true, then the next question is, how do you get your body on board when your nervous system is screaming the opposite? How do you stop your system from sabotaging the signal? The answer lives in the gateway most people overlook, and once you unlock it, the mirror stops glitching. Here's the thing no one tells you. The nervous system is the gatekeeper of manifestation. You can think the most elevated thoughts, visualize the dream house, or repeat affirmations until your jaw aches. But if your nervous system is locked in survival, the mirror reflects that tension back to you. It doesn't matter what you're saying with your mouth. The field hears what your body is broadcasting. Why? Because coherence isn't a mental trick, it's a full-body broadcast. When your heart rate, breath, and brain waves fall into rhythm, your whole system hums like a tuning fork. That coherence is what stabilizes the signal so reality can lock onto it. Without it, you're sending scrambled radio static, hope mixed with fear, trust tangled with urgency. The reflection gets glitchy. Think of it this way. Your nervous system is like the stabilizer in a mirror. If the mirror itself is shaking, the reflection blurs. No matter how brightly you try to smile, the mirror can't show it clearly until the shake stops. That's why nervous system safety matters more than thinking positive. Safety is what steadies the reflection. So how do you create that safety in real time? Let's do something simple together. Just for a moment, close your eyes. Place one hand on your chest and one on your belly. Notice your breath without changing it. Is it shallow? Is it fast? Now inhale slowly through your nose, letting your lower hand rise as your belly expands. Exhale gently through your mouth, slower than the inhale. Do this again, and as you breathe, imagine your heart and belly syncing like two instruments playing the same note. Keep breathing like this, slow and steady for a few cycles. Notice how your shoulders drop without you forcing them. Notice the microspace that opens between your thoughts. That's coherence beginning to form. This isn't about calming down to manifest faster. It's about signaling to your body, we are safe right now. It's okay to hold this frequency. That's the doorway. Because when safety is established, your body can finally receive the signal you've been trying to project. Instead of bracing against life, you begin to resonate with it. And in that resonance, the mirror stops showing you old, distorted reflections. It steadies, and the leap you've been sensing inside has a surface to land on. And here's where the real shift begins. It's one thing to drop into coherence for a few minutes, but the leap doesn't come from temporary states. It comes from identity, from the deeper layer of who you become. Which begs the question, if coherence steadies the mirror, what happens when you step beyond fleeting states and into a self that naturally radiates the frequency you've been chasing? Here's the trap most people fall into. They confuse a temporary state with a true shift. States are powerful but fleeting. You can meditate and feel calm for 10 minutes, repeat affirmations and feel hopeful for an hour, or breathe yourself into coherence before a meeting. Those states matter. They stretch the nervous system into new territory. But unless they crystallize into identity, the mirror will eventually default back to the old reflection. Think of a state like a spark. It lights the fire, it shows you what's possible, but if you don't keep feeding it, it burns out. Identity, though, that's the woodpile. It keeps the fire alive without you needing to strike the match again and again. The leap happens when what used to feel like a temporary spark becomes your baseline. This is why so many people feel stuck on the roller coaster. One day they're aligned, certain, lit up, and the next, they're back in doubt and fear. It's not because they're broken. It's because they're treating coherence as an occasional state, not as a natural self they embody. Here's the distinction. A state says, I'm feeling abundant right now. Identity says, I am the kind of person whose nervous system knows how to live in abundance. A state says, I calmed myself before this presentation. Identity says, I am someone whose voice naturally carries calm authority. That identity shift is what locks the mirror. The reflection can't help but change because you're not just borrowing the frequency, you've become it. But, and here's the uncomfortable truth, stepping into identity requires letting the old self die. The one who identified with scarcity, the one who lived in bracing, waiting for the other shoe to drop, the one who needed external proof before relaxing into trust. That self doesn't get to cross the bridge, and sometimes that feels like grief, because even familiar pain feels safer than stepping into an unknown version of yourself. This is why identity is so magnetic. When you embody a new self, the world doesn't need convincing. People feel it before you open your mouth. The mirror reflects it without delay. Opportunities that would have skipped over your old self suddenly lock onto you because resonance always seeks coherence. Now, if states are sparks and identity is fire, what if I told you that each identity you inhabit actually aligns you with an entirely different mirror? That every version of you is standing in front of a different reflection, already waiting? That's not metaphor. That's the reality of parallel timelines. Here's where the leap stops feeling abstract and starts feeling multidimensional. Each identity you hold doesn't just color how you experience the world, it literally tunes you into a different mirror, a different timeline of possibilities already existing side by side. Think of walking into a hall of mirrors. Each one reflects a version of you. Some mirrors stretch you tall, some shrink you small, some distort you in ways that almost feel unrecognizable. In the quantum field, those aren't just funhouse tricks. They're parallel versions of reality, waiting for you to choose which one you'll keep standing in front of. And the chooser isn't luck, it's identity. Say you've been living as the one who always scrapes by. That identity automatically aligns you with the mirror where money trickles, bills chase you, and opportunities slip. Shift into the one who naturally creates value, and suddenly you're standing in front of a different mirror, same world, but now the reflection shows doors you never saw before. The leap isn't conjuring something out of thin air, it's walking to a different mirror. Let me ground this with a real-life moment. Picture yourself at a job interview. You walk in jittery, rehearsing answers, praying you don't blank. That identity, the nervous candidate hoping to be picked, lines you up with a mirror that reflects scarcity. The interviewer senses the tension. The questions feel harsher. The energy in the room reflects the self you brought in. But now imagine walking in with the identity of the person who brings unique value. Same suit, same questions, same chair, but the mirror shifts. Your posture changes subtly. Your answers flow with groundedness, and suddenly the conversation feels collaborative instead of evaluative. You haven't faked confidence. You've embodied a new self. And the mirror has no choice but to echo it back. This is the crux. Identity is the steering wheel of timelines. You don't wait for the mirror to change before you step into the new you. You step first. And when you do, reality doesn't just adjust, it reorganizes. People treat you differently. Options appear that were invisible before. Life mirrors the timeline your identity has tuned you to. Of course, this isn't instant comfort. Leaving behind the old identity feels like betrayal sometimes. You might still feel the echo of the old mirror tugging at you. Are you sure? Who do you think you are? That's normal. That's the old reflection fading as you hold steady in the new one. So the question becomes, how do you train your system to stay in the new mirror, even when the old one tries to pull you back? How do you rehearse identity so deeply that it becomes second nature, so natural that the reflection doesn't waver? That's where tools come in. Now that you see identity as the steering wheel, the next step is rehearsal. Not rehearsal in the sense of pretending, but in the sense of training your system to live inside the new mirror until it becomes automatic. Because your nervous system doesn't care about words, it cares about repetition. It needs to experience the new frequency often enough that it feels like home. So let's talk tools, practical ones you can use today to stabilize the leap. The first is bridge statements. When the gap between your old identity and the new one feels too wide, the nervous system resists. Saying, "I am fully abundant," when you're staring at an overdue bill, creates static. A bridge statement reduces the gap. Instead of "I am abundant," you might say, "I am learning to trust the flow of resources," or "I am open to new ways value finds me." This isn't lowering the bar, it's building a bridge your system can actually walk across without freezing. The second tool is somatic anchors. Every identity has a posture, a breath, a way of holding itself. Notice how your body feels when you slip into doubt, shoulders hunched, chest tight, eyes darting. Then deliberately rehearse the body of the new identity. Straighten, breathe deeper, drop your shoulders. Feel how the one who trusts or the one who knows their value would physically stand. Anchoring the body is anchoring the frequency. The third is micro-embodiment drills. Instead of waiting for big moments to practice, use daily life as your training ground. Standing in line for coffee? Embody the version of you that knows life supports them. Walking into a grocery store? Embody the version of you that carries quiet authority. These micro-moments build muscle memory, so when the bigger leap moments arrive, your system doesn't panic. It recognizes the state as familiar. And the fourth is what I call a resonance reset. Whenever you catch yourself spiraling, doom-scrolling, doubting, overanalyzing, pause, breathe, and ask, which mirror am I in right now? Which identity am I rehearsing? Then deliberately choose again. Even a 10-second reset rewires the pattern. If you string these together, bridge statements, somatic anchors, micro-drills, resonance resets, you create a protocol. Not a rigid formula, but a way to consistently rehearse your chosen identity until the nervous system stabilizes. And once stabilized, the mirror has no option but to lock onto that reflection. Here's a question I want you to feel into. Have you noticed that the moment you stopped gripping so tightly, what you wanted finally showed up? Tell me your story in the comments. It might unlock someone else's leap. Because here's the twist most people miss. Even with tools, the real breakthroughs often come from the obstacles, the very places where your old self tries to hijack the signal. And if you know how to meet those traps, they stop being detours and start becoming accelerators. Every leap has friction points, the traps that pull you back into the old mirror. If you don't recognize them, you'll think you failed, But if you know how to meet them, they actually become accelerators, each one teaching your system how to stabilize the new reflection. The first trap is urgency. Urgency whispers, if it doesn't happen now, it never will. You feel the heat of the deadline, the squeeze of the bill, the clock ticking louder than your intuition. Urgency is survival mode dressed up as motivation. The problem? When you push from urgency, the mirror reflects lack of time. You start manifesting delays, glitches, cancellations. How to transmute it? Slow down the body. Urgency is physical before it's mental. Shallow breath, clenched jaw, restless pacing. The moment you lengthen your exhale, you interrupt the urgency loop. From there, reframe the urgency into momentum. If I'm feeling this much energy, it means I'm charged for a leap. I can redirect it into steady action instead of panic. Urgency becomes fuel, not fire. The second trap is split signals. This one's sneaky. On the surface, you're saying, I want expansion. But underneath, your subconscious mutters, expansion isn't safe. You affirm wealth, but secretly fear being judged for it. You call in love, but still believe intimacy means loss of freedom. The mirror reflects the split. Not yes, not no, but static. Opportunities half form, then dissolve. How to transmute it? Name both voices out loud. Seriously, speak them. Part of me wants this, part of me fears it. When you name the split, you bring both sides into coherence instead of fighting one with the other. Then ask, what would make it safer to want this? Often it's a nervous system tweak, like rehearsing boundaries or imagining support. The split doesn't vanish, but it softens, allowing one clear signal to stabilize. The third trap is over-control. This is when you clutch the steering wheel so tightly that you block the very flow you're trying to invite. You micromanage every detail, how the call must go, how the email must sound, how the outcome must arrive. The irony? Control broadcasts distrust. The mirror reflects struggle, not alignment. How to transmute it? Practice surrender in micro ways. Leave the line you rehearse unscripted. Let the text sit unsent for 10 minutes. Take a walk before sending the proposal. These tiny acts of loosening grip build tolerance for uncertainty. Over time, your system learns that flow doesn't equal chaos, it equals trust. And trust is the frequency the mirror loves most. Here's the thing, these traps aren't mistakes. They're the stress tests that stretch your nervous system into coherence. They're the very tension points that show you're on the edge of the leap. If you weren't close, the urgency wouldn't spike, the splits wouldn't surface, the need for control wouldn't flare. They only show up when the mirror is about to shift. So the question becomes, once you've spotted and transmuted these traps, how do you carry that coherence into daily life, not just in your practices, but in the ordinary, overlooked moments? Most people think the leap happens in the big moments, the pitch, the date, the stage, the check. But in truth, the leap stabilizes in the small, ordinary choices that no one sees. Daily life is where the mirror takes its real cues. Think of walking down the street. Are you rushing, shoulders forward, eyes darting, broadcasting tension? Or are you moving with presence, sensing the ground supporting you with each step? That subtle difference is a signal. The mirror doesn't wait until you're in a high-stakes moment. It's reading you all the time. Eating is another portal. Do you shovel food distractedly, scrolling, barely tasting? Or do you pause, breathe, and receive nourishment with awareness? One identity says, life is rushed and scarce. The other says, I am supported and resourced. The mirror reflects accordingly. Even conversations carry signals. If someone interrupts you, does your nervous system collapse into shrinking? Or do you stay rooted and present, speaking again when the space opens? One response keeps you in the old mirror of powerlessness, the other anchors you in a timeline of quiet authority. This isn't about being perfect, it's about rehearsal. Every ordinary act becomes a micro-practice of coherence. Walking, eating, talking, even scrolling can reinforce the identity you're choosing. The leap doesn't wait for the stage. It's happening in your kitchen, your commute, your side glances at a screen. Here's a simple integration drill. Pick one daily activity and make it sacred. Brushing your teeth? Do it as the identity you're stepping into. Feel the posture, the breath, the presence of that self, as you move the toothbrush, washing dishes. Do it as the version of you who already knows they're in the new mirror. These mundane moments train your nervous system that the leap isn't something far away. It's woven into now. And here's the paradox. When you embody coherence in ordinary life, the extraordinary moments stop feeling like leaps. They feel natural, inevitable, like the reflection you've been carrying all along. That's when opportunities land without forcing, relationships deepen without grasping, ideas spark without strain. The leap stops being an event and becomes your baseline. But this raises the next question. If the leap can be stabilized in the everyday, what happens when you expand that coherence outward into relationships, health, creativity, and purpose? What does it look like when the mirror doesn't just reflect personal shifts, but entire domains of your life at once? When coherence becomes your baseline in daily life, it doesn't stay contained. It spills outward into every domain: relationships, creativity, health, and even the way you sense purpose. The mirror doesn't just shift in small reflections, it begins to reorganize entire rooms of your reality. Let's start with relationships. When you stabilize in a coherent identity, you stop entering dynamics from need or fear. Instead of chasing validation, you radiate presence. People feel safer around you without knowing why. Old patterns of conflict begin to dissolve because you're no longer meeting others through the distorted mirror of scarcity. You're meeting them as a steady reflection. That steadiness is magnetic. It draws people who resonate with the frequency you now embody. Creativity follows the same rule. Instead of forcing output, you become a channel. Ideas flow through because your nervous system isn't blocking with tension. Projects that felt heavy suddenly unfold with ease. You stop pushing to prove and start creating as an extension of resonance. And the mirror reflects it back as synchronicity, collaborators, opportunities, moments of "I was just thinking of you" that accelerate the work in ways you couldn't script. Health is another domain where the leap expresses itself. A coherent system isn't just good for manifestation, it's good for biology. Studies show that when the heart and brain are in sync, stress hormones drop, immunity rises, and energy stabilizes. Translation? Your body starts mirroring the inner shift too. You might find old tension patterns dissolving, sleep deepening, energy returning. The leap isn't just external, it's cellular. And then there's purpose. When you live in coherence, your sense of "what am I here for" stops being a mental puzzle. It becomes obvious. The mirror shows you paths that match your frequency. People reflect back your natural gifts. Synchronicities line up in ways that make the next step clear without overthinking. Purpose becomes less about striving and more about resonance, the path that hums in tune with who you've become. Let me ground this with one last scenario. Imagine you've been facing a health challenge. The old mirror reflects fear. You search symptoms late at night, brace against the worst-case scenario, feel powerless in your body. That identity keeps you tuned to the timeline of decline. Now shift. Instead of identifying as the sick person hoping to get better, you begin rehearsing the identity of the one whose body knows how to repair. You anchor into safety daily. You speak to your cells as allies. You embody coherence even as discomfort arises. Over time, the mirror shifts. You start noticing signs of resilience, moments of strength, small signals of repair. The leap isn't denying the challenge. It's stepping into a timeline where healing is possible. This is the ripple effect of coherence. One shift in identity reorganizes many mirrors at once. Relationships, creativity, health, purpose, they all align. And that alignment reveals something deeper than personal gain. It reveals a hidden intelligence, as if the mirror itself has always been guiding you toward resonance. Which begs the question, is the leap really something you do, or is it something larger that you align with? Up until now, we've been talking about the leap as if it's something you engineer, through embodiment, coherence, identity, practice. And all of that is true. But there's a deeper layer, a paradox that flips the whole journey inside out. The leap isn't only created by you, it's also received by you. Think of the mirror again. You stand before it, shifting your breath, rehearsing new identities, steadying your nervous system. The reflection responds. But who polished the mirror? Who designed this strange, responsive field in the first place? The deeper you lean into the leap, the more obvious it becomes that something larger is at play. Call it life, intelligence, the quantum field, the divine. It doesn't matter what name you give it. What matters is that the mirror is not a dead surface. It's alive. It's listening. It's partnering with you. This is why surrender matters. Not the passive kind that means giving up, but the radical kind that means trusting the intelligence beyond your conscious control. Because here's the twist. The more you try to dominate the mirror, the more distorted it becomes. But the moment you surrender, not with force, with frequency, the reflection clarifies. Surrender isn't weakness. It's coherence with something bigger than your personal will. This is where the leap turns existential. You realize you're not just bending reality, you're being bent by it. You're not just choosing a mirror, you're being guided toward the mirror that matches your essence. The timing, the alignments, the synchronicities, they reveal a choreography you couldn't have planned. And when you align, you feel it. That deep hum of resonance that says, this is bigger than me, and yet somehow it is me. Of course, the mind resists this. It wants control, proof, guarantees. But the leap isn't built on guarantees, it's built on resonance. And resonance can't be forced, it can only be received. That's the paradox. The stronger you grip, the less it flows. The softer you trust, the clearer it becomes. This doesn't mean you stop showing up, it means you show up differently. Less like a general barking orders at the mirror, and more like a dancer moving with it. You take steps, the field responds, and suddenly you're in a choreography that feels both intimate and infinite. And in that moment, manifestation stops feeling like a personal project and starts feeling like alignment with a universal current. You're no longer straining to make life happen. You're being carried by it, guided by the same intelligence that spins galaxies and cracks seeds into forests. So when you sense you're on the edge of a quantum leap, maybe it isn't about forcing harder or fixing more. Maybe it's about softening into the recognition that you've never been doing this alone. The mirror has always been alive, waiting for you to notice the partnership. And once you see that, the leap stops being a destination. It becomes a dialogue. So, here you are, on the edge. Maybe nothing outside looks different yet. The bills still sit on the counter. The inbox still stares back, the silence after the message still lingers. But if you've been listening closely, you know by now. The leap doesn't announce itself through fireworks first. It whispers through the subtle shifts inside you. The way your breath steadies when it used to race, the way you catch yourself choosing a new identity mid-thought, the way the old mirror starts to feel unfamiliar, even before the new reflection is fully visible. That's the real proof. The leap isn't something waiting far ahead. It's already in motion, reorganizing your field right now. Each time you practice coherence, you're polishing the mirror. Each time you soften into safety instead of gripping tighter, you're stepping into a new reflection. Each time you embody the self who belongs in the timeline you've been dreaming of, you're collapsing the distance. And when the evidence finally shows up, the reply, the opportunity, the healing, the alignment, you'll realize it wasn't the beginning, it was the echo. The mirror had already shifted long before you could see it. The quantum leap had already landed inside you, so don't wait for life to prove it's happening before you believe. Believe, embody, rehearse, and regulate until it feels inevitable. Because the truth is, you're closer than you imagine. You're brushing the threshold right now, and every signal, the discomfort, the restlessness, the strange calm between doubts, is proof you're standing at the edge. The mirror doesn't lie. It can only reflect, and it's waiting to show you the self you've already become. So here's my invitation. As you listen, reflect for a moment. Which mirror are you standing in front of right now? Which identity is broadcasting through your body in this very breath? If you're sensing the leap is near, don't chase it. Don't wait for proof. Become it. And then watch as the reflection inevitably catches up.